Hi everyone, welcome back for another live with the IBD Hub. I'm Julia Demaro, the founder of the IBD Hub. We teach architects and engineers to expand their businesses and find new projects, whether it's nationally or internationally. And today we have a great guest. That is going to join us, which I will introduce to you in a moment. I just wanted to follow up since last time that I did the live. We still have a few spots left for the coaching on digital business development. So we're looking forward to know if anybody wants to join. Please DM me on LinkedIn directly. We have 5 spots left for this month, so it would be great to fill them in. So today we are going to talk about how to speed up the design process and how to have a great teamwork within an architecture and design process. So guest is Cristian Moldovan. He's the host of the Anatomy of Conflict show, which is a podcast that I'm inviting you to follow. And his task is he's a coach to improve communication and conflict negotiation. Hi,
Hello,
Cristian. How are you
glad
today?
to see you.
Yeah, thank you
I
so
was
much for
expecting this.
joining. Yeah, thank
Super
you so
excited.
much for joining us today.
I'm kind of
Do you
losing
want
you.
to maybe give a little? Yeah, is it better now?
I think yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what your purpose is with your company, and what you're trying to do at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here. And if I can um, give something from my experience to your audience so they can build their businesses quicker, faster, and in a more sustainable way, that's my pleasure to be here. So I am a relationship strategist, and basically that means I go where there are business relationships usually, and they're not working pretty well. So I'm jumping into helping businesses to like fine tune the dynamics between people, so the business can actually expand and grow in a healthy way.
Sorry,
Interpersonal
we
conflicts.
are. Sorry, I think the connection went off. So I think people didn't fully understand what your purpose was. I think we were off for about a minute. So,
To me, it sounded like it was ongoing, so I kept speaking.
all
I
right.
hope it's fine.
Okay.
I can check that on another device if you want without sound. Let's see. Are we? Yeah, it seems to be pretty good. It's live. A little bit delayed.
All right. All
So
right. Sorry.
don't worry. It's okay. So basically, interpersonal conflicts in especially in early stage companies is one of the biggest factors that makes a company fail, and this usually results in like the interpersonal conflicts usually result into a huge amount of frustration, and basically especially in a very creative world like for architects where everybody is contributing and they have a lot of creative ideas and they want to leave a mark, the artistic side and the creative side of them, which is extremely important, can cause sometimes for people to go head to head. um,
Yeah.
they waste a lot of time, energy, and resources in just trying to make a balance
Yeah.
between the people, and this kind of little conflicts, because it doesn't have to be like a huge argument, it doesn't have to be something like explosive. The little things can compound over time and
Yeah.
people build up frustration, and that is taking especially the entrepreneur from the point like I'm starting my own business and I'm going to do this and I'm going to build this amazing business that I have the vision for, to
Yeah.
thinking like, maybe starting a business was not the best idea.
Yeah.
And this is a big thing, because in the before the 10th year, 90% of newly started companies fail, and in the first year is more than 20%, which the odds to be like 2 out of 10, it's pretty bad for 1 year, basically.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't happen, basically, because I know working with people can look really hard sometime, and I totally get that. But because the good professionals, especially when we're talking about an architect that
Mhm.
has been working in another company, and they had like all the systems from that company put together, they only had to deliver on their professional skills.
Yeah.
But on the other side, when you start your own business, uh, just the professional skills are not enough, because you also need the business skills and you need the people skills. And every
Yeah.
business in the world is a people business. Otherwise, you're alone, you're a solopreneur. That's
Yeah.
also okay. But if you want to scale up and get that team together, you need to improve on the interpersonal skills like communication.
Indeed.
So that can make it, because it shouldn't be that way for 90% of the companies not to make it to the 10th year. That
Yeah.
shouldn't be. It's not right.
Yeah, it's about the soft skills as well. So no one can teach, well, except from you, no one can teach you that. It's not something natural to get if you don't have them. I just wanted to give you a little bit of context for the architects. So usually the architects that we have are either have a problem with ego, either have a problem with not seeing their worth. So
Mm.
it's a little bit, it can go two ways. Of course, there are some people that are in between, but these are the two types that we have. And
Okay.
of course, like the ego of the architect is quite tough because it creates a lot of tension in the team, in the design team, and decisions are not necessarily rational. They're more like based on who came up with which idea. So I would love to have your input on the ego part, and then also on the people that are less lucky and maybe don't see the value within themselves, and how to lead in their practice.
That's a great question, and thank you for bringing ego up. I really love when we can get straight into the core problem. Basically, we all have ego. So there is this conversation out in the world like, oh, that's an ego-driven person. That's egotistic. I don't have an ego. That's complete BS. There's no such a thing. Everybody has ego. That we need to
Yeah.
settle that once and for all. Everybody has ego, and that's okay.
Yeah.
On the other hand, however, we live in a world where everybody needs to be heard, but there's no one to listen. And if you, let's say you have a small team in your business, you will lead that team the moment when you start listening to the team members. Everybody thinks leadership is all about pointing the direction, follow me, soldiers, into the battle. Actually, no, that's one way to do it and one
Yeah.
aspect of it. Vision and direction and clarity are very important. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, if those people say, like, yeah, you go ahead, I'll catch you up. I'll, some, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of dynamics with your team and they don't believe in that, how can you make it? And when entrepreneurs start to impose their ego into in the team's life and the team dynamic, there's usually resistance. And when
Yeah.
ego and resistance meet, we have a match.
Sure.
People start to put they make this is, we used to do this when we were kids. When someone had a toy, someone brought a bigger, nicer toy, And if someone told a joke in the school, someone came like, my joke is better, hear this joke. And it's always a contest, like who's better, who's
Yeah.
better. And this is happening a lot in the creative field. Like, I'm having this idea for a project, like, oh, that idea is, it's okay, but listen to my idea.
Yeah.
And when that is happening, basically people, not only that they don't validate ideas, they go head to head because they want to be validated and they want to be heard.
Yeah.
And when you, if you are the entrepreneur, if you're the project lead, that's fine. And someone comes to you like, hey, this is my idea. Instead of saying, well, that's a great idea, let me tell you about my idea.
Yeah.
Say, great, you got an idea. Tell me more about it. I want to hear about it. Tell me more. Be curious. Show a little bit of empathy. Listen to their idea. Maybe they invested a lot of time. Maybe they invested a lot of effort. So even if it's a bad idea, treat that person with respect. And when you treat the person with respect, they will come back with respect to you, number one. And number two, if they realize the idea, even if it's a good idea, it does not fit into the project, they will back off with their own idea because they realize it doesn't fit. Otherwise, if you just oppose them, they will just push harder. They're going to try to debate you and convince you that their idea is really good. And you're like, no, it's not working. But no, my idea is so good. You don't see it. You don't understand it.
Yeah. It's
And
totally true.
this line, you don't understand it, is one of the biggest conflict starters in any company. Because when you say you don't understand, the other person is like, oh, so you think I'm stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
And
No,
from
indeed,
there, hell
it
breaks
escalates.
loose.
I mean,
Yes.
I've been in some situations, well, when I used to work for a company where the client and the architect were not had both an ego, and they were arguing about the design over and over again, and basically the meeting ended with the client leaving because the architect was on the floor trying to draw his stuff and decided he didn't want to listen to the client. So like he was just like sketching on the floor for another project and was like, yeah, I'm not talking to you until you take my idea. I'm not going to talk to you. So this is like,
Okay.
of course it's a hardcore situation, but it kind of happened quite often in our field to have people that are not empathetic or that are not really trying to understand where people are coming from, right? So that's a little bit the challenge here. We have a question from James Gay. What are your general thoughts about digital leadership and how small practices in their infancy grow, usually social media platform? Right, this is a little bit out of the topic for now, but do you have an idea of an answer for this one?
Yeah, actually, yes. I'm not a social media specialist to give advice on how to grow your practice over digital platforms, but digital leadership, well, that's another thing. Digital leadership is exactly like the mobile phone. Just because we have the freedom to move while we speak, it doesn't mean the conversation is different. Basically, if you have a conversation face to face with someone, you have the topic, you have the words, you have the attitude, the passion and energy you put into that conversation. But you can have exactly the same conversation when you're over a wire phone landline, or when you're on a mobile phone, or you're in a video face to face kind of conversation. So basically, digital in this case is just a medium, but people are still people. And there is this conversation out in the world, in the business environment, that leadership digitally is fundamentally different than working remotely and having this approach of being very separate and leading the teams through digital platforms or environments. It's very important to understand that people dynamics are people dynamics. And when you get good with people skills, is just like switching from sending an email to going over a phone. It's two different mediums, but the core thing is the same. You got to understand people. You got to be able to listen properly. And this is probably one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest risks in business. When someone wants to start a business, if they're a poor listener, they will not be able to listen to their customer. That means they lose business. And also, it means they are not able to listen to their employees, to their team. That means they're going to lose structure and predictability. So that's a very, very important thing here.
Yeah, you're right. And also to grow a business online, it's also about becoming the expert and really pinpointing what problem you're trying to solve for the client. Because often architects forget that we are here to serve a client, and we're not just here just to design. So all the posts that you make, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram, try to position yourself as an expert that is trying to solve an issue for a client and explain how do you go about it to solve it. I think that then becomes the leadership part on social media, and also leadership digitally. Usually you need 10 times more energy also to come across the camera like in a natural way. So that's also a little part of it, I think.
It is.
Great. Guys, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment and we'll take them as soon as it goes. So yeah, for the people that are that don't value themselves as much, how can they succeed in business?
That's a very important question, because this is all about the thing that everybody knows by the name of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Basically, who am I to start an architecture business? I'm just an employee. I don't have experience in business. I'm not an entrepreneur. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I want to share with you two very important realities. If you are in the audience and anybody that's watching, if you are this person that you don't value yourself enough, or you feel like you're not the person to do the business because for any reason you think you don't have the skills, experience, the whatever, the resources, it doesn't matter. You think you're not the person. I want to ask you, do you think the neurosurgeons are the person to perform a brain surgery? Like, these people know something, right? And they have studied something, and they've put in years of school, much like architects, actually. And there is a study that actually, this research focused on what the neurosurgeons tell to themselves right before they get into the operation room. It's so important to figure out that even these people that are highly trained, are having doubts right before they get into the room. And while they're washing their hands and putting the gloves and preparing to get into the ER, basically they have these conversations with themselves, saying like, there are doctors that are far better than I am. I don't know if I'm going to make it. What if I'm going to fail this patient, and maybe this patient is going to die because I fail? And they have this constant battle. But then something happens. They get into that operating room, they perform the surgery, it is a success, and then life moves on. So the question is, if those people understand that whatever their inner dialogue is about, am I able to do this? They do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because maybe a neurosurgeon has, I don't know the percentages, but has a small percentage of surgeries that don't work.
Yeah.
They did their best, but still there is a huge percent of operations that actually succeed, and they save people's lives and they make their lives better and things like that. So it's important to know you're not the only one. Everybody has an imposter syndrome. So the question is, when is this surfacing? Like, is like the unexpected guest, like, oh, you're here. So therefore, I want you to think of this imposter that lives inside you, which is also your inner critic. Uh, Try to picture it as a separate person. Picture this inner critic like the imposter inside you telling you like, hey, you're an imposter. Picture this person outside of you, outside of your body, and like it would be a real person. And try to understand what does this person want to say to you, because basically what this inner critic wants is for you to be safe. And this is very, very simple. Basically, if you have a voice in your head or you're thinking you're gonna fail, you're not good enough, this is not gonna work, it's just your inner self, this critic that is trying to tell you, hey, I'm worried that you're going to fail, and I want to protect you from from going through failure. This is so important. When you understand this, that it's just a form of protection, that your body and brain work together in order for you to say, hey, this is dangerous, I don't want to do this, this might be very difficult, I don't want to get messy with this, you don't want to deal with the consequences if you fail, and things like that. And in reality, this comes when you look forward to where you want to get. If you are an architect and want to develop your business, maybe to grow your business to the point where you can ask for much bigger projects, much bigger fees, that's where this might come into the play, because there's stake. And the question is, what if they figure out that I'm actually charging more than I'm worth? Well, this is because you are judging yourself with the brain that you would have at the point where you would be a legend already. And you need to stop that, because that's not healthy at all. You need to focus on what you have done until the present day and what you can do in a year. And most people in business, especially, they focus on the distance between where I am right now to where I want to be, and then they become frustrated because that distance doesn't seem to shorten in time. This is the big trap. That distance, like if I'm making 10 steps in my business, it's kind of like my objective, my target is moving 10 steps or 11 steps at the same time. And it's like eternally walking towards my goal, and the goal is getting further and further away from me. And that's highly, highly frustrating. And you need to stop doing it like that. So what can you do in order to measure your progress? Stop measuring your progress comparing where you are to where you want to be, and start measuring your progress by looking, where have you been a year ago and where are you today? Because those are facts. Those are facts, and that will give you a lot of value and confidence. When you take a look back 1, 2, or 3 or 5 years, whatever, you'll see like, I did some pretty amazing stuff. Like I'm good. I'm good. So I can move to the next step and to do the next stage. It's really important to stop judging yourself for who you could be or you could have been already and you're not. It really doesn't matter. What it matters is what you did so far and who you are right now. And that's enough to give you the impulse to move forward. And if you find like a block inside is not letting you step forward and make progress, then I really, really like strongly suggest you get a little bit of help, external help, someone that can advise you, like a consultant, like a coach, like someone that can take you over that bridge, because that's really important. Otherwise, it's going to cost you time, it's going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you energy. And when you run out of one of these, is bad. But when you run out of all three, that's depression, that's burnout, that's where a lot of people that start businesses get, because they did not know how to manage themselves in the business. And it's all about understanding emotions.
Yeah, and you're so right. And I mean, I can definitely relate to that at the beginning of my career as well. And I think that also part of the problem is that a lot of people compare themselves to others as well. And, you know, I always remembered a quote from Steve Jobs that was saying like the other person is not much smarter than you are. It's just like the way that they're able to, sell the idea and how they're able to be confident that sells the idea in the end, more than just a fact of someone being smarter or better than you, because actually we're all pretty much this at the same level, right?
Exactly. And before thinking of comparing your business with someone else's business, you need to think like this. That business, like pick your favorite architecture company in the world, your favorite one, like the Apple of architecture, and look at them really, really, really attentive, like pay attention and go back in their history and see how they started. Because most likely they did not start
Yeah.
with 100-floor building and in the center of New York or somewhere in the world. No, they started probably in an office on a table, whatever they could get their hands on, and they started and they implemented, and then they made progress.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Their
completely right.
success did not happen overnight at all.
Sure. I have another question for you. I feel like we're getting excited. Thank you so much for all your knowledge that you're sharing today. I really appreciate it. I
Happy to
have another
serve.
question. Yeah, thank you. I had a lot of people asking me this as architects. So a lot of architects reach a point where they have project of work that they need to hire a team, and they have a lot of problems to delegate. A lot of them tell me like, okay, but if I hire, then I have to, it costs me more time to explain things and to make sure that everything is done my way. And then in the end, like I'd rather do it by myself, right? Like, so
Yes,
how can you
yes.
start delegating in a good way?
First of all, whoever wants to start a team, they need to understand like the basic, the fundamental thing about teams. It's about patience. That's really important. If you are starting your business right now, or you're working solo for a while, but you have been an employee, I want you to go back to when you got your first job. What was the time since the day you got started in that business until you were on your own 2 feet? Everybody goes through a period of training. Everybody goes into a period of accommodation, integrating into the team, understanding the dynamics between people, who wants what and who is who. This is really important. And when you want to build a team, you need to start thinking why you need to build that team. As long as you keep that picture in mind, you will know that even if you need to be patient with a new employee, you will be, because you don't build a team for the results the team can bring you at the moment you hire the person, but you build a team for actually the results that person can provide you in the next 2 or 3 or 5 years, or maybe 10 if you're a good leader and you know how to keep your people together in the same team. This is really important. And about delegation, this is another like misconception that a lot of people have. There are at least 5 levels of responsibility when you delegate something, and everybody expects to employ a person and then think of something and then see if they already do it. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I was thinking of that idea. Why is it not done yet? Like, I don't have Wi-Fi. I'm sorry. That's not
Yeah.
how people work. So
Yeah.
you need to, in order to have a right team, it's right team means you need to hire for attitude and competency if that's a possibility. If not, if you need to pick between attitude and skills, pick attitude at any given point, because the person with the right attitude is going to pick up the skills. The person with the good skills and the bad attitude is not never going to pick up the good attitude,
I
or
so agree.
not never, but it's going to be very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So therefore, hire people that are not like you. Number one. So if you hire someone that has exactly the same skills as you have and the same vision and attitude, most likely you're going to go head to head. But if you hire someone that can be complementary with you, I don't remember, there is an entrepreneur that said this, is a big shot guy, said, always hire for your weaknesses. And that's so important. Always
Yeah.
hire for the things you hate doing. If you're an architect and you love to design and draw and come up with creative ideas, then hire someone else to do the sales for you. Because if you hate sales, you're not gonna sell.
Yeah.
That's
But however, even though it has to be complementary, is there some values that need to be similar?
yes, of
Because I'm
course.
guessing, if I mean, what I usually advise is to hire people that have the same values so that they fit in the philosophy of the company as well. So, for instance, if you're an architect specialized in sustainability, you want to hire people that believe in sustainability, right? Like you don't want to hire people that, couldn't care less of that purpose and so on.
Of
So,
course.
is
Of course.
that good advice, or?
It is, because when you bring someone in your team that is working against your values, you're going to be not only angry, but you're going to be infuriated because you're wasting your resources with that person.
Yeah,
And maybe they're going to
exactly.
try to change you. Ooh, that's even worse. So the point is, the tricky thing with the values is most people on this planet don't know what their values are. That's why it's tricky advice. So in order to hire for the values, you need to know your values
Yeah,
first.
yeah,
And for
yeah.
that, you need to dig in deep, and you need to be prepared to work with yourself, to develop yourself as a person, because you need to learn more in order to earn more. You need to be there to develop, and your business is only going to grow as much as you grow as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So basically, you need to find those values and see what are those.
Yeah, it's part of the program that I teach. So when I take
That's
architects that
pretty
want to
good.
start their own practice, the first questions is what are your values and your purpose with your company, right? Because that is so important to not only attract the right team down the line, but also to find the right clients and the right partners to work with. You only want to make those values strong when you market yourself in order to then appear, like showcase your values and attract people that believe in the same things. Otherwise it clashes a lot as well, especially during a project where you usually spend 5 to 10 years to build it. So definitely
Yes.
it is super important. I have another question for
Yes.
you as well. Like, a lot of people are asking about how to start their practice with the right business partner. I've had a terrible experience back in the days
I
when
know
I
how it
started.
is.
I started with two businessmen because I didn't trust that I could do it by myself, and
Mm-hmm.
I decided to start with two people, and then down the line, we found out that we didn't have the same vision of the future and where the company was going, and so on. So, how can you find the right business partner, according to you?
This is a very tricky question, and I I would love for this question to have like a very concrete one answer, but it's very different from person to person. And I'm gonna give a few things that are rather principles when it comes to picking
Yeah,
the right
like
business
what
partner.
should you look out for, right?
First of all, you need to see if you have a match on the core values that you have. If you value integrity and respect, you don't want a person that hides things or tells you secrets, or the person that constantly interrupts people and always wants to speak their mind. If you value, I don't know, having fun in the office, and this person is very strict and very calculated, that could be probably a good idea to hire that person to bring more balance to the office.
Yeah,
But if it's so different to you that you cannot even begin to have a proper conversation, then probably that's not the
yeah,
right business partner. On the other hand, you really need to test out, because no one has ever made a like fruitful business, a successful business with someone from the first day as like, okay, now we're business partners and let's build this. That's not the way it works. Sure. Actually, you start out, and one of the best ways to pick a business partner is someone we already work with, someone that you have experience with. Maybe you work together in a company, or maybe you were in a client supplier kind of relationship.
Yeah.
You know the person, you know their work ethic. That's super important. The work ethic, what's the most important thing in a business for them. And then about a vision, I know exactly what you mean. When I started my first company, I was 19, something like that. I had a partner, and we fought over a very, very stupid thing, and then we broke the partnership, and it was like a disaster. But the point is, the vision is not something one person brings to the table and everybody complies. When that happens, you can go to military, because that's the only place where there is a commander that says, that's the way, that's what we're going to do, no debate. But in the business world, we are in the people business. You cannot build a business by yourself. That's like freelancing if you want. But when you want to build a business, you need to build a team, and you need to have the right people around you. So in order to have a good vision, you need to work on that vision with everybody involved. So the question is, are you emotionally mature enough to give up of some part of that idea so you can make room for the contribution of everybody else in the team? Because if it's only your vision, why would people care for that? But if you involve everybody in building that vision and constructing it, so it's everybody's vision, then everybody will jump in and work towards that. And this part, when someone says like, this is where we go, this is the idea, no questions asked, there's a lot of resistance. And when there is resistance, basically someone gets frustrated, one of the sides. It's always like that. And then the little conflicts start to kick in. And little conflicts that are between people are actually they become like a glass ceiling, and they don't let the company rise. I've worked with companies, like big companies, like from Hilton, Orange, and IT companies. Every big team, every team that was driven to get the goals or even move beyond the goals had that glass ceiling. And the number one reason why the glass ceiling was there is it was for the little inconveniences, the little conflicts between people within the team, the kind of things that people say, oh, it's nothing. But that little nothing goes towards like, next time I see an opportunity, and you, Julia, annoyed me this morning over the coffee, I see an opportunity that would really help you, and I'll say, oh, she was nasty this morning, so she doesn't deserve that. And that's a business that the whole company missed.
Sure.
On a very little thing that's ego-driven.
Yeah.
The little conflicts actually are the glass ceiling. So in order to break that, and I have clients that actually, the moment they understood that and they started to take notice of the little things and address them right away, they exploded. I had companies that went from 1 year to the next year, so year on year, 300% growth, which is amazing. Most people don't dream about that.
Yeah.
And it's all about people. It's always about people.
No, I completely agree. I love all your insights. It's so useful. I have to say, I have so many questions to ask you. I know that we're running out of time, but I'm going to still try to ask a couple of questions. So, how to waste less time arguing and more time making a collective decision? So, in a design workshop, we often have a lot of people, engineers, clients, architects, technical architects, and so on. And we spend a lot of time discussing really small things, but not really making any decisions. So I was wondering
and
if you
losing the
had.
big picture.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, there are two things that are, one of them is the simplest thing you can think of, and it's the most effective, and that is listening. When people are arguing, basically what's happening, everybody's speaking, nobody's listening. Therefore, it's just wasted energy and time.
Yeah.
So the moment in a world where everybody speaks, the listener will be king. That's the way it is, because everybody wants to be heard. Nobody's there to listen. The moment someone starts listening, that's the person that's going to get the most attention. That's the person that's going to get the power of decision making. So listening is the key factor here. And then there is another thing, which is about mindset. Unfortunately, especially in the creative world, when people need to work in a team, they don't collaborate, they compete.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm coming with an idea and I'm presenting that idea to you. We've been through this already.
Yeah.
You come with your idea, and then I'm trying to convince you that my idea is better than yours. When is that going to work? Never. There is a study, and people in the architecture world should know about this study. Why is IKEA so successful? So this study actually went and asked people why they like the furniture from IKEA. Very good thing to find out that. Do you think the IKEA furniture is the most beautiful furniture in the world? No. Do you think is like correctly priced? No. But why do you buy it? Well, I love mounting it up.
Yeah.
So they took this, the hypothesis was like the things that you do with your own hands, you value more. So what did they do? There was this person that got a child, like poster boy kind of child, like perfect kid, beautiful, smart, funny, everything. And they were walking down the street and they were just going to approach other people, parents with children, and say, hey, dear parent, I have here a kid, is the smartest kid in the world, is the most beautiful kid in the world. He has humor, or she, super intelligent. They, this kid always does the homework by itself and by himself or herself, and you don't have to worry about anything. It even cooks. We're gonna cook for you. Would you like to trade this kid for your kid? Like, your kid is a little bit uglier anyway. It's like, what on earth are you? Call the police. What? So the things that we do ourselves, we create ourselves, we put more energy and passion into it, even if it's the ugliest thing in the world.
Sure.
And I'm going to take this back to birth. So basically, when babies are born, if it's not your baby, you're going to look at it and it's going to be like, what a beautiful baby.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
But the fact is, the mother during the labor, she has 9 times the level of oxytocin in her organism. So even if you would put like a lizard in her hands, it's going to be the most beautiful baby in the world. The father actually has only 2 times or up to 3 times more the oxytocin level in the body. So what an ugly baby, I love it, I love this baby, it's my baby. And that's the kind of passion and connection that you have. When people build things with their own hands, they have that, a little bit of that oxytocin, so they're going to love that project even more. So when we're working together on a project and I'm having an idea and you have an idea and I'm trying to convince you that my idea is better, even if your idea is like the most stupid and useless idea in the world, you're going to fight for it.
Yeah, you get emotional about it. Yeah.
Exactly. So therefore, you need to listen. Number one, listen with empathy, listen with respect. See that that person in front of you actually put time and effort and creativity, and they use their intelligence to come up with that idea. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. Acknowledge that. Say, hey, I see you put passion. I see you put energy, you put your creativity and your talent into it. I respect that. And then you can move to, let's see how that can fit into the project. Let me show you my idea. So let's see how we can combine them, or we can learn from each other so we can come up with something even better. When you have that kind of approach, you're not in competition anymore. So most people move from competition to collaboration, which is great, but it's not good enough.
True.
Especially in the creative world, collaboration is actually a form of competition where you also get the credit, but I get most of the credit.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big problem. But actually, the mindset should shift from competition, not to collaboration, but to co-creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, when we design, what if we design together? What if I am trusting you to have your creativity intertwined with my creativity? So
Yeah.
I say, hey, I'm drawing this line, and I I suggest you do this in a workshop that you have, especially if you have the people physically in the same place. I'm drawing the line, this line here. You continue, you make your move, then I'll make mine, and you do 10 turns. It might be nothing. People might have zero results. You can do that talking about it first. What do you want to draw, or without, it's equal. But do that and see how actually shapes start to form on that piece of
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah.
And the shape and the result in this process, when you discover this, is not important. But the relationship you develop with the person you do that, that's the important part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way, if you, like, when you started drawing as an architect, most probably you had shitty designs.
Yeah.
That's the world. We all evolved from something, right?
Yeah.
But if you had, and I'm pretty sure that never happened to people, or you overcame it, because otherwise you wouldn't have been an architect. Um, when you have a little bit of a drawing skill, and you feel very shitty about yourself, and you tell yourself, like, this is not what I'm supposed to do, this is a waste of time, and I don't like spending time with myself doing this, you're never going to get it, you're never going to make it. So therefore, this is really important. When you have a shitty design that you
Yeah.
co-created with someone, it's someplace that you can grow from. But the
Yeah.
relationship, that's very difficult. When you go head to head, it's very difficult to go back to. It's not impossible. It needs patience and listening and a lot of work,
Sure.
but co-creation is the key here.
I also think that what helps a lot is a facilitator. So designate someone that is
Absolutely.
able to moderate everyone. And also, like, now that I hear you talking, I realize, like, for instance, Clubhouse is such a workshop in a way, because everybody is forced to listen to each other and create together, because there is moderator that allow you to speak, and you're not allowed to speak on other people, and they reframe the topic every time. So maybe that's also a tip for architects and their workshops, to really designate someone to lead the discussion and make sure that we don't go off topic, for instance.
Especially if there are 3 or more people.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
unfortunately, a lot of architects are working in pairs.
True.
So who's designating who? That's a tricky
Yeah,
one
well,
here.
I mean, if it is with the client and with the stakeholders and the engineers, usually is more than two people as well.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, indeed, you're right. It's a tough one. For me, for myself, I was the facilitator many times, so that's why I
That's
know,
good.
like, that's maybe how it can help also a little bit.
It
Um,
does a lot.
yeah. I have another question. And then I have one last one, and then we're done. Sorry, but it's so interesting to me to have your point of view. But a lot of people sometimes they can disagree at work. And there is different ways to communicate that. I have to say I'm not the best person to communicate my disagreement. I'm quite passionate when it comes, and direct. So um,
Good combination. Good combination.
yeah, well, it in some cases it helps, and in some cases it doesn't. So
Definitely.
I'm sure you have some good insight on that as well.
Yes, this is something that can bring a lot of frustration into a team, into a company, because we all have things we don't agree with. And that's perfectly normal. If we wouldn't disagree on anything, we could not create anything, and there would be no problem, and everything will be boring as hell.
Yeah.
So there's no point in saying, "I wish we didn't disagree at all." Well, that's not that's not realistic. So the truth is, everybody faces disagreement in a way or another. The question is, how are you going to do it in such a way that the other person does not feel offended?
Yeah.
So this is the key idea here. When you know what's the outcome of that disagreement, when you communicate that, you know the outcome. I want the other person to understand me, so we can move forward and create something that is working for the both of us or all of us. The one thing that people do in order to communicate their disagreement is, "You're wrong."
Sure.
And that is not helpful at
Yeah,
all,
yeah. It's not constructive.
because
Yeah.
yes, and then they try to explain that, and the person is puzzled and lost, and like, "What are you talking about?" And then the person that said that you're wrong, "You don't understand."
Yeah.
And that means, "Oh, so you think I'm stupid?" So that's this earlier on, and it's the same conflict over and over again. So one thing that is highly important when you communicate your disagreement is to make it clear to everybody involved that it's something that you disagree with,
Yeah.
and you don't disagree with the person. In English, "I disagree with you," but actually you don't disagree with the person, you disagree with the idea.
Yeah.
You cannot disagree a person, like
Yeah.
that's not going
Yeah.
to happen. But you can disagree an idea. You can disagree that the person has some opinion on something, and even that, you cannot disagree someone's opinion. This is also a big issue. When it's like, I'm telling you, "I think this building should be red. I like red a lot." No, you don't.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be personal. It should be. It should be communicated as a.
It can be personal, but
Mm,
don't make it about the other person. Make it about
no,
yourself. Because the moment you communicate clearly that, "Hey, I understand and I acknowledge that this is your preference. However, me personally, I don't think that's a good
yeah,
option." And then I treat you with respect, and I'm contradicting you with respect. Where actually I'm expressing my opinion over the thoughts that you have on the subject of the matter. And this is so important, because the moment when you put your disagreement, you connect your disagreement to the other person is going to take it as a challenge, as an insult, or as something that will enable them to get a lot of frustration and angry and get defensive. And when people get defensive, that's just a millimeter away from a conflict. I can't hear you for some reason. I don't know
sorry, I
why.
muted my microphone because my dog was barking. Um, and we have a comment here from Ali. It says it's also the way to communicate that we architects use, which is very decisive. We will really decide whether you could create beautiful, but most important, valuable design. So I think what Ali is trying to say is that we're very passionate indeed, because yeah, it's our creation. So we're going to be very personal about it in a way. And also because architecture is not like science. You don't have like a right or wrong answer. It's very subjective. So of course that's going to create a lot of personal arguments and disagreements because of that, right? If it was maths, there would be either the right answer
Yes.
or not, right?
Um, Thank you, Ali, for that comment. I want to respond to something there. You
Mm-hmm.
said, but most important, valuable designs. Okay. who decides what is value? Who is the arbitrary mind that says this is valuable and this is not? This is another like poisoned apple,
Yeah.
because what I created, I considered that's valuable. What you created, you considered that's valuable. And we put them together and like, well, maybe yours not that valuable. And let's go head to head, especially if there's ego about it. And
Yeah.
growing the capacity and the skills to understand your own emotions when it comes to collaborating with other persons is essential. Because you see, if you are not okay with a few things, you didn't get the validation that you needed, you're most probably going to project that on your partners or your team or even the client. And I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm going to put myself on the floor and start drawing something else. Like, go away, creepy client.
Yeah.
Well, that's an option. When, especially if you're there in a business, you're there to serve your client. And when you have that kind of attitude, most likely you're going to lose, because that client, when that client gets out of your office, they'll call 10 friends and say like, you should hear what just happened to me.
Yeah.
And from there on, everybody knows your style of working. So as long as you focus more, and this is also about communicating your agreement, taking responsibility for what you say and your own thoughts, and give voice to your thoughts in first person and make it about yourself while keeping your attention to the other person, that's going to make it work smoothly.
Sure.
But that needs practice. That is just like starting to draw. First, you start with lines, and the lines are all curvy, and then you get better with the lines, and then you, oh, I can draw a straight line now. Now I can move to the next, like doing curves and different types of shapes. It takes practice and patience. That's why earlier on today I said patience is the key, because it is.
Sure.
Especially when you want to train people to be there in your team with you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I completely agree. Thank you so much for this. I have one last question, because it's a subject that for me has been spoken about over and over again. And it's I can't say it in English.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Thank you.
It gives me a lot of headache, this word too. I know how it is.
Yeah, and it's also a topic that is yeah, a lot of people have an opinion on it. Some people say that you should not be vulnerable at work. Some people should say that you should be, in order to capture the attention of some clients and so on. So I was wondering what your thoughts were about this. I know it's a big topic, but
vulnerability means showing emotions. And we as a society have big issue with that, like big issue, especially when it comes to men.
Yeah.
And in the second episode of my podcast, the title is The Limits Society Makes You Believe. My guest shares a very important thing, and he says something like this: anger is the only appropriate emotion that men are allowed to manifest in public. Because if you are sad as a man, you're weak. If you are depressed, if you are frustrated, like, what's wrong with you? Are you frustrated? You know, that kind of passive aggressiveness around any other feeling except anger. If it's angry, the man is angry. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
This is the way we interact. And with women, this happens as well, but at a lesser degree, of course.
Yeah.
But when we take the gender out of the question and we take the professional, it's even worse than with the men. As a professional, you're not even allowed to be angry. Like, how dare you are angry in this meeting? Like, why aren't you like Dalai Lama kind of zen here? Like, come back, get out, refresh, and come back when you're not angry. When anger is an emotion just like happiness.
Yeah.
So the point is, we keep this vulnerability that we have beyond walls and shields, and we try to protect it, because you see, If someone knows my weakest spot, what if they're going to take advantage of it?
Yeah.
If you have this thought in your mind as a professional, or even as a human being, as a man or woman, it doesn't matter. If you have this thought in your mind, I dare you, take a pen and paper. You got to have those two. You're an architect. So spend 10 minutes with yourself and write down, what are my most vulnerable points? And write down, they're going to know I'm not prepared. Okay, that could be one. Or maybe I don't have the experience it looks I have, or I don't know, it can be anything. Write those things down. Then ask yourself, what is the worst thing that's going to happen if anybody finds out about these? And what you're going to come up with is going to be a lot of scenarios that are highly unlikely. Because Americans have this acronym for everything told fear is false expectations appearing real.
Yeah.
And basically, when you know that if someone finds out about your dirty little secret, that is going to happen, then you can expect it. It's not a surprise anymore. So therefore, you can actually go in front of that person or community or whatever and say, hey, of course, if this is relevant, don't go and spill all your secrets that are irrelevant to anybody and just make a mess out of everything. That's not a case here. But when it's about leadership or about like, hey, I'm falling behind on my project, that's a vulnerability. And what could happen if you go out and go to your team and say, hey, I'm way behind on my tasks. I'm not going to be able to deliver this on time, or even to the client.
Sure.
Well, let's see what's going to happen. The person in front of you is going to see A, oh, you're highly unprofessional. B, oh, that's so great you told us, so we can adjust things in time, so we can be flexible about it.
Yeah.
C, you're fired. D, that's something, I don't know, they bring a bomb or something to your office. Chances are, if you have the power to admit where you're weaker or where you fell behind, they will respect you and they will see you as a very ethical person. Because actually, that's what matters. What happens if you don't communicate your vulnerabilities and you wait until everybody figures it out by themselves?
Yeah.
So you reach to the deadline with your project, you're 50% progress, and you have to deliver 100% today. And you have the meeting with the client, and you're just waiting. And the client comes in and say, well, you know, I could have sent you a letter with a pigeon or a fax, if anybody uses that anymore, or an email or call you to say, hey, I'm not done. But I actually let you come into my office so you can waste your time in the traffic to come here and see my face when I'm telling you I'm way, way behind on your project that you expected to receive today. That sounds like a very, very useful and constructive meeting.
Yeah.
So you got to pick, because vulnerability shared on your own terms is a strength. Vulnerability shared on everyone else's terms is a weakness. Make your pick.
Yes, all right. And also, you know, it also depends on the vulnerability. Like, for instance, for my personal experience, I'm quite transparent. I like to put people at ease by being transparent on everything. But it's true that when I have to share like stories and you know, weaknesses or things that went wrong, I always share vulnerabilities that I'm healed from, because those are the ones that people can learn from. And also the way I communicate it is much like it's from a more rational background than an emotional background. Like if I was like
safe.
Well, it's safe, true, but in order to keep your leadership status and your coaching status, better to talk about vulnerabilities that happened in the past or that you're over with, rather than sharing the ones that are still a little bit touch
let
you
me share a
on.
story with you on this. A friend of mine, we studied together nonviolent communication. She was pretty good at empathic listening, and we developed our skills together. And she's a very kind person. And it's the kind of person that's kind of like introvert. She minds her own business in the office, and she likes to get things done. And she's hardworking, really good work ethic. And one day, her boss came in shouting and blaming and being angry and throwing things around. And out of everybody in the office, the boss picked her.
Wow.
And she was like, don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me. And there was the boss. I'm talking to you. Like, okay, what happened? And she's like, you didn't do that on time, but we're gonna fall behind with this. And everything was okay. But the boss was going insane. So she asked her boss, I get it, you're angry, but what's wrong? I don't understand. Like, you're all over the place. You're talking trash to me, and I don't appreciate this. And I'm scared of what's about to happen. So she actually shared her vulnerability and say, hey, I'm scared. And I don't know what this is where this is gonna lead. You're all over the place, and you're being aggressive in your language. Like, everything okay? She asked her boss, and the boss says, it was a woman, and she was like, I'm sorry I did that. And the moment she said that, she started crying all over the office.
Yeah.
And sorry about that. I have like DHL is knocking on my door. So basically, she started crying. The boss was like nerve-wracked. It was completely difficult for her. So my friend, as the employee, went there and say, what's wrong? And she offered her time to listen to the boss. And because she said, hey, I'm scared, and she shared her vulnerability, the boss could open up.
Sure.
And the boss said, hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be rude or angry. It has nothing to do with you. You are all doing fine, but my kids are sick at home. My husband is on a trip for 2 weeks, and I couldn't find anybody to supervise my kids, and I don't know if they're okay.
Yeah.
She was
so it's just an addition of things. Yeah.
Exactly. So the boss actually, that's where she found the place to relieve all that stress.
Yeah.
And when you have that power of being vulnerable in front of the person that's angry, that person is going to open up. And just a tip for this, if someone gets angry with you, or you have a lot of disagreement, instead of, when you have a force that's coming this way, and there is another force, equal and opposite, like the law says, they're going to reach balance.
Yeah.
And guess what's going to happen? If this side is going to push harder, the other side is going to push harder. And the harder you push, the only thing that's going to happen is more friction here. Every architect understands this. So what happens if you remove the resistance on either side? So if you are this person, and this is your boss, your client, your colleague, whatever, and you're going head to head, what if you said, like, come with me. Okay, come on. Yeah. How far can you go? Like, say it out loud. Say everything. And if you listen to that person, you will know when to speak. And a lot of people, my clients and people in my audience, always ask me, when and how can I know when to speak, when they can actually listen to me? And there's a very, very simple way to know that. When your counterpart runs out of words, it's quiet in their mind. And that's when you can speak with your mind, when you can tell your idea. And if that takes like 3 hours of listening, if that idea is worth that thing, then listen for 3 hours and then share your idea. If your idea is not worth the time, then probably it's not even a good idea to share that idea with anyone.
Yeah.
It's that important. Listen until they make space, and they just quiet quiet the mind,
Yeah.
and then they know
Thank you so
exactly, you know exactly when to speak, and you will be listened to.
Yeah, thank you so much for all your insightful. Wow, I love this episode. I love it. I got so much insight. You're great. I'm
Thank you
really
very
happy
much. I appreciate it.
to have you on, and also, I'm amazed that you managed to answer so carefully all the questions related to the architecture world, because a lot of our experts don't know anything about architecture, and sometimes it's difficult to explain where we're coming from. You did that very well, so I really appreciate it. Um, can you tell us, Christian, where people can find you and where they can follow you, and so on?
Thank you. Yes. So basically, people can get in touch with me on any of the social media platforms. Just Google my name, and Out of Conflict, or everything that's my name and conflict, you will find me. Also, you can reach out by listening to my podcast, The Anatomy of Conflict, and you can go to iTunes podcast or Spotify, and my contact details are listed under every episode. And also, you can find me on outofconflict.com, where basically I have a little platform where I share resources with people. One of the things is the empathy checklist, and
Okay.
if you download that, it's like a one-page guide that is, you can self-assess yourself, like how empathetic and how much listening did you do in a one-on-one meeting or
Wow.
in a group meeting, and you can mark that, like, have I kept made eye contact with people, did I listen without interruption, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then you can mark that on a scale from 1 to 10, and on the things that you didn't perform the way you wanted, you can pick one, and on the bottom you will have a couple of or three questions to self-coach. So you can ask
Okay.
yourself, like, what have I done and how did it work? What was the effect of that? What can I do better next time? What can I focus on? And focus on one thing a week. And then you can just improve your presence, your empathy in meetings. And trust me, this is uh, clearly the same for every industry. So architects don't make an exception to this one. The better you get at listening and being present in a meeting, the more successful your meetings and more happy your clients are going to be.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I hope everyone downloads it. I'm going to download it as well, also for my team, so we can all check how empathetic we are and get better at it for sure. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for being so available for nearly an hour and 15 minutes. That's one of the longest episodes that we did. If anyone
Happy to
wants
be
to
here.
listen, yeah, and if anyone wants to listen back to this episode with Christian, it will be available next week on the IBD Hub podcast, also available on Apple Podcast and Spotify and YouTube. So please tune in. Thank you so much, Christian, again, and see you very soon.
Happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to serve.
No
This is the most
problem.
important thing for me. So if anybody wants to get in touch, by the way, you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. We are on LinkedIn, so that's really, I
Yeah.
think, the easiest way. Um, Thank you. And I really appreciate that you're doing this and you're raising this kind of questions, which, let's be honest, in most of the professional world, nobody talks about vulnerability.
True.
Everybody, that's a taboo topic. Like, we can talk money, we can talk loss, we can talk profit, but vulnerability, I don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Like, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no. So
Subject.
I
Yeah.
really commend you for doing this, because emotions in business is so important. 80% is emotions and how you think, and 20% is the strategy and execution. So
Sure.
it's really important to get your mind straight and your emotions straight. And that's when things happen. So thank you for doing that, because it's super useful.
Yeah. Thank you for giving you all your input as well.
I love it.
See you very soon, everyone. And do not hesitate to contact us if you have any questions on LinkedIn. See you next week.
Have a great day, everyone.